Hi, sorry it's been so late, but here's my portion of the presentation I was supposed to give on marijuana and other drugs in schools. Um, so first I'm going to talk about um, the question, is a student simply smelling like marijuana enough information for a teacher to recommend the suspension of a student? And then I'm going to talk about the signs of drug use and the signs of addiction. And then finally, just some common misconceptions that teens have about the detection and enforcement of marijuana and other drugs. So first off, to answer the question, is a student simply smelling like marijuana enough information for a teacher to recommend the suspension of that student? The truth is that a teacher only has to suspect that a student has been smoking or even come in contact with marijuana in order to warrant further investigation. But there's a process. So teachers have to first obviously suspect that a student's come into contact with marijuana, and then the teacher must notify the principal, who can investigate, and then if they deem that that student maybe has come into contact with marijuana, or that student is doing marijuana, then the teacher or the principal can notify the police and give the police probable cause for checking the student's possessions in the locker. So then it begs the question, what are some of the signs of drug use? Is it possible to see visible symptoms of students who are using marijuana and other drugs? Well, the answer is yes. There are signs, visible signs that are easy to observe, and that do have an effect on the demeanor of students. So first off, a few of the things to look for in a student who's been using drugs is glazed eyes or drowsiness. Now this could be exhibited in a student who's been sleeping, but combined with confusion, inappropriate silliness, and mental torpitude, just an overall change of demeanor. That's the main thing that you're looking for. If a student comes to school and they're sleepy or something like that, it's not enough. But with, they're confused, they're drowsy, they've got glazed eyes, and they're confused, or their head's down on the desk, it's pretty easy to figure out that, maybe they've been using drugs or alcohol. But, they do. What's important is that students who are using drugs do exhibit visible symptoms, and it is possible to tell when a student's been using marijuana. Now, some signs of addiction are, the long-term effects of drug use on teens and on students. Some of the things to watch out for is estrangement from family, moodiness, explosive anger, followed by depression and self-hate, the deterioration of moral values, which could mean shifts in group allegiances, changing of groups of friends and that sort of thing. If they're doing things that they wouldn't normally do, if they're saying things that they wouldn't normally say, and then academic underachievement and truancy. Usually drug use and truancy go hand in hand. So as students start to get into drugs and start doing drugs on a regular basis, they begin to miss school because they're confused and they don't end up being mentally prepared for coming to school, so they just don't. So those are some of the things to look out for long-term effects of drug use on teens. And so finally, some of the misconceptions about marijuana and other drugs. What do teens believe about, first, detection and then enforcement of marijuana? So they have 4 common misconceptions, which we did the activity were based on these 4. But the first is that marijuana has little or no effect on demeanor, and its use by itself is unlikely to attract attention by the police or anyone else, any authority figures. And that's just completely not true. Marijuana use is very, very harshly cracked down on by the police and by most authorities. So its use is not, just a frivolous thing. It is a very serious offense. The second is that the likeliest outcome of an encounter with the police is confiscation and not arrest. Well, while the students are minors, it is unlikely that they get arrested per se, but you could be, charged with intent to traffic if you have more, and if you only have a little bit, then they still you could get suspended or expelled from school, depending on the circumstances. So students are they very underestimate the gravity of the situation when they use marijuana and drugs. So the third misconception is that many police officers use marijuana, but because of random drug tests and other ways of cracking down on that, I'm sure that many police officers do not, in fact, use marijuana, and because it's so harshly cracked down on, it would ruin a police officer's life to get caught using marijuana. And finally, the fourth common misconception is that students believe that ethnicity and social class are crucial variables in determining both the likelihood and outcome of an encounter with the police. And though this may seem like the case, most often than not, racism is not a factor in whether people have an encounter with the police. Usually it's, if a person is looking suspicious or hanging out in parts of the city, kind of loitering. Those are the kinds of places that they get. And students, especially in school, they don't belong necessarily to, the police aren't the ones who will be examining them in the schools without cause from a teacher or a principal. So it really won't play into that at all. So that was my part of the presentation. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, and sorry again.